take home the gold. He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch.
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Wu.
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Spring college season is here and the warm weather is on its way. That means it's reversible season. Breakmark is giving away free reversibles for teams that order a bundle. With prices starting at just $75, it's the best way to have your team looking game ready this spring. And reorders get a 20% discount. Get started today at breakmark.com.
Canada and the rest of the world, you're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo Wan, living in Kingston, Ontario, flying solo today. No Danny, still going through the family stuff, and all I'm going to say is thoughts and prayers go out to her and her family. No Kelsey as well. We're going to go quick hitter podcast today. It's going to be just news, a little bit of a preview with CEIUS finals, and then we're going to get out of here. So busy time for me just with my work, so just going to keep this short and sweet. Got a banquet to plan away for the next couple weekends as well. So a lot going on, but got to make sure we give the news to the people. So we're going to jump right in to the news. And that's going to be the bulk of the episode, reviewing some things Stanford Invite, other things going on. So we're going to hit the news.
We now have breaking news.
We're going to start West Coast, but not what you think with Stanford Invite. We're actually going to go juniors. Prime, the new big juniors ultimate club out of Vancouver, headed down to a tournament in Seven Hills, which is in Seattle, Washington, the United States. Their winter program. So from what I've been told and what I gather, I don't think if you make this team, you're automatically on the summer team, but I could be wrong. Anyhow, there were about 8 Eclipse players on the girls' side, give or take 3 or so, from what I've been told on the boys' side. So on the girls' side, they went 1-2 in pool play, ended up winning their quarterfinal and then losing their semi to the eventual winner. The name I'm not going to say out loud, but basically it's $HIT. So clever name, got to give it to you. Then the Prime girls team came fourth, losing to South Eugene. If you've heard anything about high school national invite, you know that's a pretty good program. So on the boys' side, 0-3 in pool play, but hey, winning their pre-quarter, ended up losing the next few games there and placed 8th. So 4th and 8th respectively for the Prime squad out there. And they'll be hopefully back in action. I know they're coming down for the juniors fours or some iteration of that. So you'll get to see them later is all I'm saying. So moving on, in Quebec, there was a big tournament. We talked about it last week. There's a big tournament out there. Mars Attaque. So many teams, 100 plus. Come on, it's a big tournament. Kudos to attorney directors. Was talking to Phil Dorval a little bit as well. I think he's involved in some way, shape, or form, and got some insight. So Elite Division, there's a lot of teams, and we're going to focus specifically on the Division 1 because there's like 3 divisions within it. So there were 16 seeds in there, and out of the top 8 seeds, 2 of them didn't make the quarters in 50-50. Talked about them last week. And Louis Luncheonette, who's a team that's been at C4UC. So quarterfinalists, lots of close games. Valore Pastel defeats Plan B. Trash Pandas, love that name, defeats Terrain 1 by 1 point, 17-16. Ultimanati, 19-16 over Davy Sitters. And then Sugar Mommies, 16-15 over Ninjaks. And this Minati team, seeded 14th coming in, they're going to end up doing well. And just a quick note, I think we talked about it last week as well. But basically, if you're seeded low, it's because you didn't win a certain amount of games, or there's just points allocated throughout the different stops in the season. So this is like their finale going on. So that's why it's the biggest tournament. So they were able to improve up on their seed here. In the semis, Valore Pastel, 18-11 over Trash Pandas first semi. And then that Minati team, 15-12 over Sugar Mommies, setting up a final. Valore Pastel, the number 1 seed. You're keeping the crown. Let's go. You showed it all season, and you show it here. in the tournament, winning 18-17. Was told it was not Universe. So, it could be exciting if it was Universe, but I was told it was not. So from Phil Dorval, one of our, we're going to say reporters out here on the streets, boots on the ground, Valori Pastel led all the way by a nice cushion of 4 to 5 points. They got scored on, I guess, 3 points in the final minutes, but never really felt close. Started on 0, up by 1 with 20 seconds left. And as you know, in fours, you can milk the clock out here and take the title. So congrats to you. 50-50, the 2 seed wins out, comes in 9th. Sometimes that happens. You're the top seed and you don't end up winning the title. So or getting even into the top 8 happens. Now, what does that mean for the C4UC coming up? Well, turns out we talked about bids, but a lot of these teams ain't going. So only one Quebec team going from what I see out here. Ontario, remember when we talked about how only 4 teams were going? Even on the Google sheet, I'm looking at it now, it says unlikely. But hey, 7 of these teams, they going. So 7 Ontario teams, you can go on the C4UC site to see which ones are going. Not going to list them all. But Tetraphobia, you get the last bid. So hey, number 7 seed in Ontario, you're still going. So that's fun. And there'll be a little cross-country representation here. 3 teams from Alberta, 2 from Nova Scotia. Kelsey had talked about that before. Team from Newfoundland, Saskatchewan, a team from Manitoba, and then the aforementioned Quebec team as well. So obviously a lot of representation from Ontario kind of makes sense, where some teams from other parts of the country don't really value the 4v4 or even play it and don't see the need to come down. So it makes sense for Ontario teams when it's based in that province to have a predominant amount of teams going. But what's exciting, though, I want to add is that the juniors have their own. So this is a PSA. I've been told this by a resident fact checker. 1 more team is needed. Okay, so contact your provincial ultimate organization if you want to come. So right now, 2 BC, Canyon and Prime, 2 Ontario, an Ottawa 1, and then Ontario West, currently located, from what I see, out of Toronto. Quebec team, PULL. Manitoba team, Team Manitoba. Newfoundland, Storm. Those are your junior mixed teams. They coming out, going to be playing this tournament. And I advocated this in the subscribers only last week. It's good to get reps in. So get those reps in, come out. 1 more team needed. So sign up. Now moving on to University Series. Going to talk a little bit about that first with Stanford Invite. So we previewed it last week. UBC, watching you, hoping you would make it to semis finals, but just not to be on this weekend, but lots of season left to make an impression. So don't worry there. They went undefeated in pool play, 13-5 over Davis, and then 13-1 over UCLA. Then they dispatched Tufts on the live stream. So hopefully some of you got to see that game. And as I say, if you don't have a subscription, you should get one, because then you can see Canadian teams live in action. So UBC going undefeated in pool play. Obviously, their toughest game would be the 6th seed there in Tufts, dispatching the Cali-based teams with, I'm going to say, a little bit of relative ease. Got a bye to quarters, which then set them up with a matchup with the UW. We talked about this in the preview as well, that this is not the same Washington team that they saw at Bellingham Invite. Weather's wacky, early season in January, wind, it's just not the same. So don't expect that. It was a tough 13-10 loss. Got a chance to watch most of the second half, and there were chances for UBC. D-line, getting turns, or Washington just forcing their own turnovers. And there were multiple opportunities for UBC to cash in on the goal line, and just throws are too low or kind of just out of the reach there. So it's tough. They were there, and they had opportunities. Really cool to see how the lineups were shaken. It was definitely, Danny had talked about this. It's no longer the prep phase. It's time to put this into action. And you could see that in just who was getting called on. Some O-line players getting D-line reps. Matty Young getting a lot of reps out there. Mika Kurhashi as well. There's others too. But definitely, at least from what I saw, it seemed like the bench was tightening up. So that's what happened. They won the rest of the way. So defeating Oregon, Oregon's a legendary program out here. If any of you know Jesse Schaffner back in the day, Haley Walrus was another big player for them Bethany Kaler, I believe, as well. Anyways, Oregon Fugue, legendary program. Maybe falling off a little bit here. UBC beats them 13-3, and then they take out Stanford 9-6. So a big win over Stanford. Stanford's been pretty hyped up as well by all the college beat writers out here. So good wins to finish out. Sometimes you have expectations as a 3 seed. You're hoping for certain things, and the quarter doesn't go your way, and it happens. But good on UBC to bounce back, able to win out, finish 5th. So got to be feeling good there. Got a chance to talk to one of the staff writers, senior staff writer, I believe, Jenna Weiner. Boots on the ground out here. I'm going to directly quote it. The star players that we expected to be key for UBC were just that, with Maddie Young in particular immediately joining my list of Player of the Year contenders. So, Maddie Young was a big offensive threat, but now getting some love for Player of the Year contender. So that's kind of cool. Really exciting. And Jenna also just noted some of the things that I talked about with some of the goal line turnovers. Got a chance to talk about a trio here. One of the trios, the main one being UW, UBC, and Tufts kind of all together, because there were one and one between the 3 teams. So UBC defeated Tufts in pool play, as I mentioned. Tufts defeated UW later on for 3rd. So the teams beat each other. UBC over Tufts, Tufts over UW, UW over UBC. So Jenna, I asked, who do you got out of the 3? Responded with UBC on top. It's close, but given the nod to UBC, I didn't say it. It's a reporter's view, not mine. So, some people might say being a little homer here, but that's what I heard. So UBC, I believe, will be going to Northwest Challenge, if I'm not mistaken, and go through, of course, the gauntlet of conferences and regionals. Still high up in, I believe, the Frisbee rankings here, and also still high up, should be in the Ultra World Power rankings. Don't think they're going to fall too far. I mean, you're losing to some good teams out here. Currently, right now, they are actually 2nd, okay? As of March 13th, 12 Eastern, which is when the latest FrisbeeRankings.com rankings are out, they're currently 2nd in the country. So even with the loss to UW, still out there making moves. Keep an eye out for them. Now, this is kind of news, also preview. CEIUS finals. Split venues between Guelph and Waterloo, actually. So just with the amount of teams, you can't have it at one venue. So Guelph and Waterloo, 30 to 40 minute drive, depending where you are. Depending how slow you are. Probably 30. Okay. 8 teams each division. We're going to break it down real quick. This episode is going to go a little over 15 minutes here, it looks like. So starting off open, you got Ottawa X. They won Kingston and didn't play the second event. They're going to be seeded first out here. 2nd seed is McMaster. 4th at the first Kingston event. Then they won Brampton. We talked about them. Waterloo A, 3rd, and then 4th. So you're going to be slotted in the 3rd seed. And then here's a surprise. The 4th seed going to be Sherbrooke. Hadn't played all year. But remember we talked about there's a bid application. You can, convince UC that you should go. And Sherbrooke's like, hey, we convinced them. And now we're the 4th seed. So they've probably been playing in Quebec, but they haven't been playing out in these other tournaments. So we'll see what's up. We'll see how they do. They got the 4th seed. Guelph X, 7th in Kingston. Okay. But then 2nd in Brampton. So now they're the 5th seed. London, they were Western X, I believe was the highest finishing team. They're 9th in Kingston, and then 3rd in Brampton. So you're seeing some of these teams, they're seeing a little bit in the middle, but they had some pretty good results in Brampton. TMU only played the one tournament, 6th in Brampton. They're the 7th seed. And then McMaster B, 5th in Brampton. I believe they were tied for 13th earlier in the Kingston tournament. And they're going to round out the seeds at number 8. Carleton did accept their bid, but was told they dropped out. So McMaster B took their spot. And then the aforementioned Sherbrooke. And then TMU got application bids. So good on both of you to get in. And now all teams make the quarters. So you're still fighting for the seeding, kind of similar to Div 1. I haven't seen any of the action, so I'm not going to make predictions out here. I could make it based off the rosters or outdoors, but just going to tell you what's going on, okay? And maybe we'll interview the winners. I'm not sure. Not sure yet what the plans are with the busy weeks ahead, but we'll keep you informed on the results, okay? Moving on to women's, or college women's division. 8 teams as well. You got a familiar name that I say a lot now in the college scene out here. McMaster Y and McMaster X, your top 2 seeds. So the Y squad, second in Kingston, first in Brampton. McMaster X, first in Kingston, defeating their other squad. Third in Brampton. Try to do some sleuthing out here, okay? Because I had to. I copy and pasted the rosters from each of the tournaments to kind of compare. There's some shifting around. I see some names that show up on both rosters at some point. From what I'm gathering here, I believe that's McMaster X. They have 3 players that have played for them at all the previous 2 other tournaments. And then McMaster Y has 4 players that have played for them at the 2 other previous tournaments. Some of them have played for, let's say, McMaster X or McMaster Y, but just at one tournament. Or they've been switching around. Okay, so I'm not sure how they're stacking it. It looks like, I think it's pretty split, and based on the name, when you go XY, it's usually a split. But you never know. So keep an eye out for them. An example would be Sasha Palmer, who's been on the podcast. Give a big shout out. Was on McMaster X for Brampton tournament, at least on their roster. Was on McMaster Y for the first tournament, and then appears on the McMaster Y roster for the championship tournament. So that's an example of the bouncing around, shifting things, seeing like, hey, this works, this doesn't. So what's interesting though is if you look at these rosters, how many team players they have. So, it's only 4 at a time, but you got teams out here like London, which we'll talk about, has 14 on the roster. So maybe some of them can't come or what have you, but that's kind of cool. 3rd seed is Guelph. They came 4th in Kingston and 2nd in Brampton. So they lost to McMaster in the final. Maybe thought they could be seeded 2nd, but they're going to be seeded 3rd. Coming in the 4th seed is Waterloo A, 5th in Kingston, 4th in Brampton. So kind of seeded where they're supposed to be. London, you came 8th out of 9 teams. Okay, in Kingston, but you moved up with a 5th place finish in Brampton. So you're going to be seated right in the 5 spot. TMU 7th in Brampton, going to be seated number 6, and then Waterloo B 6th in Kingston, losing to their own A squad out here, 10th in Brampton, and then Guelph B, you're filling in on short notice, which we love. Okay, talked about this before with Danny. It's A and B, but often it's A players on both of those teams. Potentially, like they're a fall team because you have 24 players. You might be splitting it down the middle 12-12. So maybe there are some A players that aren't playing, so there are some B players that pick up. But there are some high-level players out here, okay? Once again, no predictions going to come at you. Just telling you what's happening. TMU and Brock got bids by application. So TMU, again, you applied, you get in. Good on you for initiative, captains especially. Love that. I know you're busy university students, so good on you. And then Guelph B, hometown tournament. We're going to fill in on short notice. Let's do it. Ottawa women would have earned a bid, but did not accept. So those are kind of your news and notes. I know AUDL rosters be dropping out here in Montreal Royale. They've been dropping some of their rosters. Their vets coming back. Okay, you can check out their Instagram for that. Club tryouts are being announced. I see them everywhere. Okay, I'm excited to go to some up in a different city in Ottawa, also in tryout in Kingston. Lots going on. So Frisbee really coming out right now. Get excited, folks. Okay, quick episode for you today. Believe I kept it under 20, just over 15, something like that. Not too sure. Once again, follow us on socials, do all those good things. Have a question or idea, huckin@ltworld.com. Thanks again for joining us and kind of dealing with some of the things happening in our own lives. We still want to provide coverage as much as we can, but also got to deal with our own lives too. So quick balance for you. No subscriber only this week. I'm just going to record this one and head out. So thanks again if you are a subscriber, sorry that there isn't one this week. And if you are a subscriber, go watch some of the UBC film. It'll be fun. McGill's game film from Eastern Qualifiers out too, so go check them out. Okay. Thank you again for tuning in, being a fan. We'll see you next week.